All right, welcome everybody to the Lakers Legacy podcast, where let's not watch that again. And by that, I'm talking about the Lakers debacle in Cleveland last night, where the Lakers lost more than just the game. They almost lost Luka due to Cleveland's silly raised court, but we managed to come away without serious injury. And now we await Austin's impending return and Giannis's impending trade and maybe a Lakers move or two. We'll see. Maybe. We'll get into it. I'm your host, Jonathan Hernandez. And in today's episode, we've got the man who always watches it again, regardless of how ugly the tape is. We've got friend of the podcast, former fan of the Lakers Legacy podcast when he was a college student, maybe. But here he is now, killing it on the Lakers beat, asking our players all the most relevant questions. Mr. Raj Chipalu. Raj, welcome back to the Lakers Legacy podcast. How have you been, man?
I have been good, Jonathan. Thank you. As you mentioned, this is a podcast that I am extremely familiar with. One that I think I didn't even know what a podcast was when I was listening to the Lakers Legacy podcast. But no, glad to be back. It's been a crazy year, honestly. I've been thinking, following Luka Doncic trade. Before then, I was never even at a Laker game credentialed before, and now a year later, I've been to pretty much all the home games this year. But we were talking earlier. I am glad they are on the road for a little while, so I get to be on a break and be here and talk hoops with you. So I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you here. Congrats on the tremendous beat work with the Lakers and the South Bay Lakers. Outside of the obvious, what's been the most rewarding part of it all for you? I'm sure you can't believe you're interviewing the Lakers players, but maybe something that you
Yeah.
hadn't anticipated before taking on this gig.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coolest thing to me as someone who just started tweeting from an account that wasn't even under my real name, it was called Unwritten Rules. I just made something up and that thing started to gain a little bit of traction. And never did I ever think I'd actually, be in the building at that time. But I don't know, something super cool about watching the game and then like having a thought about like what happened and then be
Mhm.
able to ask the people who just played in that game about it still trips me out. Like the other day, the Lakers were playing the Hornets and we lost at home, and I was like, oh man, like they're getting killed on these guard to guard screens, or these ball screens. And that's something that I would just tweet out. But now I can not only just tweet that out, I actually went to Marcus Smart and was like, hey, what happened on these screens? That's something that's like still my reality has not matched like my brain in a
Mm.
way. But no, it's been cool to be a part of it, be, inside the life of the building. And the strangest thing is being recognized walking around. I think that's a little trippy still. But no, just cool to be a part of the beat and around all these people who do it professionally. And some people who've been doing this 20 years, and just getting their kind of experiences with it has been really cool.
Yeah, that's great insight because you don't even think about it when you have a thought as you're watching the game and you like tweet something out and you're like, well, I'm only really assuming it may sound right, but you can
Right.
literally confirm what is actually going on behind the scenes, which is nuts. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Y- y-
Um, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like sometimes it doesn't work out, right? Like sometimes like because again on Twitter you can sometimes tweet in ways where you like what your thought is reality, right? And
Mhm.
so the Lakers played the Rockets on Christmas and I thought, we were just switching too much and I assumed that was an assumption of mine
Yep.
that the defensive scheme was wrong. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna take this to JJ Redick. And so I was trying to ask him about the switching, and he stopped me mid sentence before I was even done, and was like, "We do not switch." And, he didn't really like the premise of the question, so sometimes it doesn't always work well, and that's
Mhm.
something I'm kind of learning as well
Yeah.
as I go. But no, again, it's cool to ask these people who are gonna forget more basketball than I will ever know. That's a way that I try to look at it and go into it. But again, the experience has been really cool.
But even that example is you get something that not a lot of us do where you're getting, you're getting corrected on the spot and you can
Right.
understand like where you went wrong, where some of us, we just live in our ship of wrongness, so keep sailing on our
Sure.
ship of wrongness. But anyways, who's been your best interview, you think, of the players that you've interviewed or been the most likable and easy?
What's funny is, so Rui, I don't even know if he does this consciously, but he is extremely transparent, and
Mhm.
that's something that I really like. And I don't know if that's because of the language or whatever it is, but I just like that he's very transparent. Like, I think one time, I think in preseason, I asked him, like, hey, with when LeBron is playing, like, how does your role change when LeBron's out there or not? And he pretty much is like, yeah, LeBron takes away my driving lanes and under the and I'm sure that's not the way he meant it in terms of like, hey, I can't drive because LeBron is out there. But I like the transparency that he gave was like, hey, the reason I'm shooting all these jump shots is because the paint is filled. And so that's something that I like that I've been talking to him about, that I've talked to him about. Aiton is also kind of like that, where he'll really open up. And you kind of learn guys is different, the way they want to reveal their answers. So yeah, Vando is kind of a little bit more reserved. So you just kind of get a feel of different players. But yeah, I think Rui's been really cool because he's super transparent of a guy that in terms of his answers, he's very polarizing. I think we both are kind of on the same page of, I think he gets a little bit more flack than kind of the production is actually saying he does. So that's the type of stories that I try to bring out and try to give some answers to of a guy who's, super polarizing on the team. And so it's nice to kind of ask him his thoughts about, different things on the floor.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And it's crazy how much we like rag on a player who's like all of a sudden 14th on the Lakers all-time three-point shooting list. A player who was not even a three-point shooter coming into the Lakers, right? And he's shooting like 44% from three for like this third straight year in terms of above 40%. But anyways, like that's good insight as well, because like the Japanese are very respectful people. So I feel like if Rui were speaking in his native language, he would probably over color and like sprinkle in the sugar in terms of, but it's nice because he has to speak English. He's just literally giving you the facts.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, we could probably go on and keep talking about, your coverage of the Lakers, which is really interesting. But for today's episode, we are going to do it's crazy. The trade deadline is less than a week away, pretty much a week away. And we're all trying to brace for something big. Maybe, we're not sure. The Giannis stuff is insane right now. Who knows what'll come of that? But in today's episode, after we do a quick Lakers temperature check with Raj, we will do a Lakers trade deadline wish list as if Christmas Day is coming, which, for basketball fans, it kind of is. And so we will give our personal wish list, and we'll cover 3 positional categories: 3-and-D guard, 3-and-D wing, and centers. If you have any other positions you want to fill out, like, we need a scoring forward too, we can add those. But for each of those categories, we will give our priority / pipe dream target, best case scenario option, and then we'll also give just like a way more realistic one that we actually think may happen. But before we get to that, if I could please ask you guys to like this video, comment down below, and most importantly, hit subscribe. Also, please consider becoming a member to the Lakers Legacy YouTube channel. I plan to host some like exclusive live streams right up until the trade deadline, and also go over some cap stuff of the Lakers cap books this upcoming 2026, which should inform us of what the Lakers may or may not do this upcoming trade deadline, which is pretty much today leading up to next week. So before we get to the trade stuff, Raj, macro thoughts on the Lakers, the Cleveland game notwithstanding, because I feel like that was almost like, let's just flush that down the toilet. I don't know what that was. LeBron was crying. Luka almost got injured, raised floor, whatever. What have your thoughts been about this team as a whole, especially as it pertains to, and let's keep it relevant because we were just in Cleveland. LeBron was just there saying a bunch of like, he doesn't know for himself. And I truly believe him that he doesn't know where he stands on this season, but that's a tricky situation to be in for a team that is trying to compete now, and that for a team that just semi-turned the page with their next franchise player. And I was talking to you before we started. I don't think we've ever experienced something like this as Lakers fans, especially not in the recent, 2 eras, because this is not like the David Robinson, Tim Duncan transition with the Spurs, or even the Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard transition, or the Dirk Nowitzki and Luka transition with the Mavs. This is like LeBron is literally our second best player still, third some nights with Austin Reeves. And how do we rely on a player like that or move forward with regards to team building and the trade deadline, knowing that it seems like he could not be here next summer? And so framing it under that lens, like, what have your thoughts been on this team? Because we are 10 games above 500. We are 5th in the West. We could go anywhere from 2nd to 9th. It's weird.
Yeah, I tweeted something out that kind of made a lot of people upset, I guess. I said, you know, the Lakers don't get talked about like a team that's 11 games over 500 at that time, obviously, and then now they get blown out after the Cleveland loss. So everyone returns to that tweet and attacks me for it. But we had a nice, conversation before we started about kind of how basketball coverage is in general. I think this team is better than it's given credit for. I think losing Austin Reeves has been put in small print when to me that should be in large, bold letters. Like, hey, this team has been without Austin Reeves and without LeBron James for a majority of the season now, right? Both have missed months, I believe. And this team has hovered nicely, in a nice spot. They're 3 games, I think, back of the 2 seed right now. But you're right. This is unprecedented territory. LeBron not only is this good, but I don't think he was supposed to be this good right now. And that's something that that I caught live as well. His first few games, Jonathan, it was a little concerning to me. I wasn't sure. And again, this is not LeBron's fault. It's just most 41-year-olds do not return to a player that can average 27, 8, and 8 on efficient scoring. And watching him against these younger teams and still be able to kind of bully his way to the basket, still find a way to get 10 points in a quarter. To me, he has the best ever in understanding time, score, situation, where the Lakers will be down, 4 or 5, and he understands, third quarter, 5 minutes left. This is the time where we win the game. To me, that stuff is stuff that you can't really teach, and it's a level of experience that you can't get to. But the Lakers are in a weird spot to where I think the future is kind of decided, where it's people may disagree, but I think it's Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves re-signed, and then everyone else is kind of auditioning to be a part of that. LeBron James is not auditioning. LeBron James has been the star actor for a bajillion years, and he continues to be that star actor. I'm not into movies, but he's like the star actor that continues to excel in his role. The only difference here is the Lakers now have another star actor. They're like, hey, we want this guy to kind of be the lead now. And LeBron is still too good to kind of push him aside. And that's been this interesting combination. Luka and LeBron's pairing, Jonathan, I think has been super fascinating to me. They have not gelled in terms of their playmaking has not compounded each other in a way that I thought it would. Their scoring has not compounded each other in the way that I thought it would. They've kind of balanced that now by being 2 guys that, operate from the post, and that's been interesting to watch both of them kind of do that. But I think the holes that the team has are very clear. I think they need defensive, help across the roster. I think the offense is top 3 or 4 potential when all these guys are healthy. And that's a place that I don't think you need to over-index in. But this Giannis stuff getting thrown into it, the Lakers chase stars, Rob Pelinka chases stars as he continues to, be at the helm of all of this. So the team's in an interesting place, but I think they're better than they're given credit for. Their losses being 20-point losses, I think is concerning, but I think it also kind of hides the fact that when the team is healthy, I think they're better than they've shown. So that I think that you're right. The team's in a weird place. I don't really know how they operate at this deadline. The articles that come out, you're starting to hear the 3 first-round picks to operate with this summer. I know you like hearing that. I know all Laker fans love hearing that. But that's where I think it becomes interesting, because I don't think this is a gap year, but I also, not to make people upset, I don't think this is a year where they want to push every chip into the table. And I think that's where they're at right now. They feel like they have a puncher's chance. Aaron Gordon is now out 4 to 6 weeks. We'll see how that affects Denver. It's a weird year in the West. And I think the Lakers feel like they have a shot if they even just do some marginal moves. And that's probably where I think they sit.
Yeah, I think I would have been a little bit more on fire with regards to keeping the picks and stuff if we still had the LeBron AD core. But I think things shifted when we traded for Luka, because you do have to be a little bit more careful with every move you make so that you don't, and it's like 2-tiered. It's like you got Luka, but you're also entering a summer where you can literally have the blueprint in front of you and build it from the ground up without any questions of whatever. If you're wrong about what you build, then we know exactly where you went wrong, right? It's not like, oh, we
Yeah.
had to make this deal because we were really trying to win for LeBron's last year as a Laker. It's like, no, we don't, we're trying to be smart about this. I know how people have very like strong feelings about Rob
Right.
Pelinka, but even if you put Rob Pelinka's name out of this equation, I think any smart GM would be like, wait, hold on. Like, remember when we almost traded a 2031 first and a 2030 pick swap for Mark Williams? Phew, thank God we were allowed to rescind that trade because we wouldn't have that right now. But, now that we have it, maybe we should be a little bit smarter about how we move. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting and delicate situation, but I am with you 100% on where the Lakers stand with regards to how good are they, how bad are they? And sometimes I'm like, I know we are people who live in the moment, which is great, but when I hear some fans and some takes with regards to this team, like bashing us on a certain nights, and I'm like, again, I know we talk about Rob Pelinka a lot, but it's like, Rob, I can't believe you built this team. And I'm like, I don't think Rob built this team thinking that his second best player would not be available for these games. You know what I'm saying? It's like the LeBron, Austin, and Luka have only played 8 games together. They are 5-3 in those 8 games, but in those 8 games, they were not all healthy either because LeBron was just coming back and looking his rusty ass self. And then for one of those games, Austin came back on Christmas Day and was clearly not ready to come back. So it's like those 8 games are not even a good encapsulation of what we can do and what our potential is. So
I think you're right, and I don't think the 8 games really told me much of anything because to your point, LeBron wasn't healthy. Austin was just LeBron was ramping up. Austin was still bothered by his injury issues, and Luka Doncic I think was carrying such a load from the beginning of the season. I do think we got a lot of information last year, Jonathan, that I thought gave you some answers to some of the tests for this season that I'm not sure how many we solved. Like, I think the Ayton thing is interesting to me because he hasn't fit the way I thought he would. I thought he was awesome when it was just Luka and Austin. I thought his fit there was really clean. Something, happened with him, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but his fit just has not been as clean as the season has gone on. Him and Luka's chemistry hasn't, improved. So there's this, I think it's a tough place to be in because when you have a player as good as Luka Doncic, he's 27, right, in his prime, I think Luka also gets thrown into this Laker thing where the conversation around him has surpassed, like, there's critiquing a player and then there's going as far as some of the stuff I see of you can't win with this player. It's like, we got to slow down. Like, this guy averaging 36, leading the league in scoring, averaging 20 plus points in, first quarters. But yeah, I think like it's a tough place because you also don't want to throw away years where, like, again, you look at the record, 10 games above 500. We've mentioned that LeBron and Austin have missed. I think this team is legit good. You can push a first-round pick in the table and have it can have real effects on this squad, right? There's actual guys available they can probably go get. Now, there's an opportunity cost to that. There's who can be available later. And that's a tough part that I think they're walking. And I think most fans have pitchforks out going, you told me this the last 4 seasons. You told me the next deadline, from the next deadline to the next deadline, and now it's the next deadline. Now it's the next transaction cycle. So I understand the frustration there, but I think Luka Doncic has kind of reset the clock in a way that a lot of people aren't really, excited about. And you have the LeBron fans as well going, hey, it's LeBron's last year, and they're like, great.
I know. We're so many competing factions against one another that we're like, hey, we can't fulfill everybody's wishes and dreams here. I don't know why we haven't made this connection yet or why I don't see this connection brought up, but the Lakers are pretty much what their ownership group is right now. Everything is in flux. Everything is in transition. Like, we can literally make that parallel of you've still got some old people in house and you've still got new ownership. It's not going to happen overnight. And the awkwardness of it all is going to manifest itself in certain ways. And the fact that the Lakers are 10 games above 500, in spite of how injury prone they have been, and in spite of the weird circumstances with, I feel like LeBron's having his reunion tour in the midst of this season, and thank God it hasn't been that much of a distraction. But the moment he says, this is my last year, who knows what that's going to turn the season into, So I don't know. It's crazy, but this is what we signed up for. It's still a lot of fun. I'm glad to have you on the show. And I feel like it's the funnest time of all because it's the trade deadline, depending on what the Lakers do or don't do. We shall see. My last question for you before we get into the trade stuff is, who's been your favorite newcomer this season? You brought up DeAndre Ayton and all that stuff, but like in terms of like obviously not Luka, but who's been your favorite newcomer? And the one thing I'll add before you go is, it's funny that, you know, when I had you on last year, you know, we still had D'Lo, we still had was it just
did
D'Lo?
we? Wow.
AD, okay. We had AD, Max Christie, right? Isn't it crazy that we made this momentum shifting trade and it still kind of feels like we're in the exact same spot? We kind of just like shifted the chairs a little bit because like we traded, I mean, all of the things that we still needed last year, athleticism, better perimeter defense, you know, maybe better rebounding. Those are the things that we needed with Anthony Davis and Max Christie. But we traded him for Luka Doncic, and that obviously shifted the levels. We got better defensive players, I think, like in Jake LaRavia, Marcus Smart, etc. But overall, because of that monumental shift from defense to offense, it's kind of like we ended up in the same place anyways. You know, it's just we were able to open up our timeline a little bit with regards to the future. But that's not the question I wanted to ask you, but you can think about that as you answer the question, who's been your favorite newcomer this season?
Yeah, so I've really enjoyed watching, you know, Jake and Smart have completely different resumes, right? Like Marcus Smart is a DPOY winner, comes with a level of respect and commands a level of, you know, he's just been in the league for a while now, has won awards, been on teams that have been deep in the playoffs. And Jake LaRavia comes from the Kings and a Grizzlies team that was terrible at the time. But I think both of them have brought like exactly what this team is missing. And you know, the Rui starter bench thing has taken on its own, you know, its own story throughout. And is Rui going to be upset? Now a story comes out that Rui's enjoying coming off, or, you know, is happy to accept coming off the bench. I don't think that's coincidental at all. But in any case, I don't think it's accident that Jake LaRavia and Marcus Smart continue to start. Now, obviously, I think Smart will come out of the starting lineup once Austin returns, is my assumption, and Jake continues to start. But just it's been cool to watch a guy like Jake LaRavia. I think his numbers, you know, I wrote for Silver Screen Roll that I thought that like he's the fifth starter to me. Like he fits as, obviously from a talent perspective, like you'd want a better person at the 3 spot. He makes $6 million a year, so I judge him off that. He's on a 2-year, $6 million, you know, two-year, $12 million deal. But I think the Lakers in that lineup with so much ball handling, Jonathan, already indexed for, right? Like I really don't need a guy that needs to touch the ball very much, that needs to run offense. That guy doesn't need to run a single pick and roll. I have Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, and if they're not doing it, I have LeBron James on the floor. Like I don't need another guy that can call up a guy to set a screen. What I do need is a guy that does everything else. And I think Jake's starting to shoot better from three. He's a really good rebounder. He has a really quick, he reads the game well. His plus minus is usually pretty good. And even when he scores like 6 points, I feel like he impacts the game. It's fun to watch him. And Marcus Smart, I think, has kind of brought what I thought. Now he has a roller coaster on offense. Like it's Marcus Smart time in the strangest times of the game. Like it's a close game and he just decides I need to go and take a finger roll from the free throw line. But I think without Austin, like the team needs some of that, like, you know, someone who just calls their own number in an unconscious way. And I think he's brought that as well. And again, it's an absolute roller coaster. He's shooting, I think, around 30% on open threes, which is just not what you want at that position. But he just brings a level of defense and intensity that I've enjoyed. And this guy is not a newcomer, but I've enjoyed watching Vando kind of re-emerge in the rotation as well. It's been cool to watch him kind of find his role, because I think it's important that we need a player like that. But those guys are all kind of defensive first guys, and I think it's a really nice kind of, I think, blueprint to what the team needs. If you can get a little bit more skill player that does those things, I think the Lakers are cooking. But I've liked what all three of them kind of have brought, you know, as the team's hurt and needs these guys to kind of contribute a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Vando, I like that you brought up Vando. Even though he's not a new player, it's almost like we see him with fresh eyes, because this is the first time he's been as healthy as he has been since he got here, which is kind of crazy. We forget that in the last 2 years. And so, yeah, I mean, it made sense that we were all down on him and we're like, maybe this contract is a bad contract. But seeing him healthy again, you're like, oh, right, that's the dude. That when he first donned the Lakers jersey, we're like, hey, this dude should be a role player on the Lakers forever.
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy that it's all kind of all come around, and hopefully we can see it continue to come to fruition, and maybe his contract turns out to be a bargain deal by the end of it. So love Laravia and Smart as well. I feel like Smart, there's all that poetry with regards to him being picked by the Celtics right before Randall. And I don't think, and maybe this is just me projecting, but during Marcus Smart's like pressers when he first donned the purple and gold, it just seemed like he was so happy to be here, and almost like he felt like he should have been a Laker from the beginning. I know a lot of this is probably like some angst from the Celtics for trading him, like, and then the year after they trade him, they win the championship after grooming him for that long. But because of all those things, I would love to see Marcus Smart win a championship with the Lakers. How poetic would that be for him to spend most of his time with the Celtics, get so close to winning the championship, not winning the championship, but then finally being able to do it in the purple and gold. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and he's played in a ton of high leverage games, right? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown get most of the credit, as they should, but Smart was right there with him. And that's why, again, I think, with Austin now, he gets the most like clip farmed, I think is the term now, right? Where it's very easy to clip Marcus Smart doing something crazy with the basketball, these behind the back passes, these lobs that are nowhere close. But what people don't clip are when teams are ball pressuring full court and Luka gives him Marcus Smart, he'll be like, oh no, you don't get to just bully me behind here. I'm going to hard dribble, drive, and I'm going to get fouled. He has more respect with the officials than I, would have thought. He actually gets calls in a way that, even sometimes LeBron doesn't get, which is weird to watch. But yeah, and again, he was coming from Washington, so you'd be happy too. I feel like if you were saved from the Wizards to come to the Lakers, there's some of that is probably why he was smiling so much. But yeah, he's brought like this every night type of, I think, motor that the team has missed. But his health is something that I think they're watching. They try not to, overuse him. But yeah, I've enjoyed the Marcus Smart experience. I was a little worried when we got him in terms of how far, how much mileage was on him.
Yeah.
But he's had a strong season.
Yeah, and for better for worse, Marcus Smart just only knows how to play one way.
Yeah.
And so I just want to see this guy in high leverage situations once again, because I feel like his influence is probably going to be paramount. And, we've cycled through a lot of guards in the past, whether it's Dennis Schroeder, Kendrick Nunn, Gabe Vincent right now. And it's like, I feel at Patrick Beverly. And I feel like Marcus Smart at least like blends a little bit more of the skill sets together, where it's like he's not just solely a defensive guy. For better or for worse, he can handle the ball and play make and all that stuff. So it's like we don't have to necessarily pick and choose too strongly on one end with him, where it's just like we know what he can't do. It's like he can do a little bit of everything. Sometimes the pendulum swings way too far on, the crazy side, but that's also kind of how he works. He is a chaos agent for better or for worse, right? So
yeah, I'd rather have a guy that I have to kind of reel in than a guy that I have to kind of turn the motor on. You know what I mean? And so like I'd rather have it this way, even though it's extreme. Like Marcus Smart, if you leave him open, he takes it in a disrespectful manner. He's gonna shoot every time. Now, that's on the coach to kind of be like, hey, you've missed your last four. It's time to move the ball. But I'd rather have a guy that's aggressive to shoot than, one that's passive. Like sometimes Gabe will do this. Well, he'll just pass up open shots. Like, yeah, I know you're not shooting a high percentage, but you have to take those. The open three, Luka Doncic drove, jumped in the air, twisted and turned to get it to you in the corner. You have to shoot that open shot. If you don't, you break the whole point of the play. And I like that Marcus kind of understands that.
Yeah. For sure. All right. With that said, let's flip the page and talk about the trade deadline, because it is coming up in the next week or so. But before we do that, let's take it to break and pitch it to a couple of sponsors, and we will catch you guys after the turn. All right. So we are back. So to kick off this section for us, Raj, we're going to do a trade deadline, Lakers trade deadline personal wish list. I do have a starred comment here, and let's bring it up because I think it's relevant. This is from @Yep, she's right. I don't trust Rob, yet we can make a run at a championship. Perfectly fair, perspective to have on things. I think this is probably most Lakers fans' point of view on things. And, in my mindset, depending on what we do at this trade deadline, and I've been framing it in this way, even though it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I don't think we can win the championship necessarily. There's like a 1% chance that everything breaks right and maybe we get there, but I could see us making that, 2023 run when we got D'Lo, Vando, and whatever.
Sure.
And it's crazy because there are a lot of parallels with that season with regards to we were set to have cap space that summer as well. And Rob just decided to trade for every unrestricted free agent, restricted free agent, a guy with a team up. Like he kept his options open, but I felt like that
Yeah,
season he did a good job of like towing the line of, hey, these are guys who can help now. And they maybe tricked us because we went to the Western Conference Finals and he's like, oh, I guess we better re-up everybody to keep that continuity. But I feel like he's going to try and do the same thing this year, except to a much lower extent. Instead of getting like 5 new guys, we might get 2 new guys. But I think he's going to try and do the same thing with regards to who are the best expirings or guys with a team option or a partial guarantee that we can get, who we can sort of test out now. They'll probably help us now. And if they do well, maybe we'll resign them because we have cap space. And if they don't, or someone else better comes along who we're not thinking about right now, come summer, we can just get off of their option, So I feel like that's going to be what the Lakers are trying to do. What do you think?
Yeah. So it's funny because in 2023, we got to remember the desperation that we were at that time versus now, right? So 2023, I think we were below 500 still by the time the deadline came around. Because
the Russ year, it was Russ.
The Russ year started, I believe, awfully, right? I think it was like 2-10, 3-10, or something like to start the year. Then was catch up the whole time. I may be wrong. I feel like this year they have a lot less urgency that's needed. This team has shown that they're going to win at a requisite amount, that you probably don't have to make the amount of moves that they did. I'm sure they'll still be aggressive in whatever way they can. I'm not sure how much a first round pick is leaving the door by the deadline. That's something that I'd be interested in to see. Although, one was traded last deadline, but that was right after the Luka trade. That was for Mark Williams, as you mentioned. That was rescinded in one of the strangest few weeks I've ever seen in Lakerland. But yeah, it's funny because I think, the Rob stuff is very interesting. I'm sure Rob's going at it, going, I just brought you guys Luka Doncic on a platter 11 months ago. But yeah, but he's going to continue to be judged. And you mentioned the new ownership, and I'm sure they have all eyes on this. I'm guessing Rob gets this transaction window and the summer to kind of prove what he can do. And then from there, I'm sure more changes will be, taken upon if needed. But yeah, I think that's an interesting comp to the 2023 season. I think that season was a lot more of a shocker, right? Most people were just, the clock on the Russ trade was kind of clicking, and everyone knew Russ had to be traded. Just where there was an Indiana deal at the time, which looking back, I don't know, it's kind of unclear if you got Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, how much that would have helped other than getting D'Lo and, Vando and Malik Beasley. But yeah, I'd be interested. I'm not 100% sure. It's hard to read on what the team will do in terms of, are they going for Giannis? Are they going to wait? Are they going to go for all these other players that, maybe available or not available? The Pelicans have 10 guys who are somehow, who are locked into their team. But yeah, we'll see. But I like that comp of the 2023 season.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with regards to maybe the pressure to do so is not there. I will say though, just from like a practical logistical standpoint, like I think in his tenure, anytime Rob Pelinka has had at least $10 million worth of expirings, he has always flipped that for something. It may not be the something that you necessarily want, but if you look back on every year that he's had at least one bloated expiring, he will at least take a flyer on somebody new, even if it's like a small marginal trade. The only year he didn't was infamously, you guys already know, it was like, I think 2023 when we had JHS and Torian Prince was the only expiring that we had. He was a $4 million expiring, and say what you want about, yes, obviously he was a teacher's pet and Darvin Ham wouldn't have let him go, but also you also can't do much with $4 million in expiring anyways. You can't take back like another player who, like a player who's $4 million is probably not moving the needle for you, right? So this year I have a little bit more hope that even if it's not necessarily for like a starter level player, I think the Lakers know that they're heading into a very important summer and they at least need to do some sort of, let's test things out this season. Let's do a proof of concept with some of the guys that we have. And if we can take Dalton or a second and attach it to these expirings and we get a flyer on so-and-so player who we'll be talking about soon, then we should at least try and do that, because I feel like the main 7 to 8 guys are pretty set. I feel like there's some work to do on the margins, even if we don't swing something crazy, which I don't think they're trying to do anyways, unless obviously something pops with Giannis,
Sure.
or something pops tangentially from Giannis. But yeah, I think because we have so many expirings that something small at the very least will probably get done, which is why I said I think it's going to be like 2023, but like the lower end version of it. So like instead of 5 deals, when Rob
Yeah.
Pelinka was feeling himself and he was like, you know what, Mo Bamba, like pat that for Mo Bamba. I think
Yeah.
it'll be more like, okay, give us your best 2 marginal moves, Rob, and let's see what can happen. Because I don't think this team is that far off, and we currently have a free roster spot that we can sign somebody with. We're well enough below the first April now, so any additional players that we can count on that can actually play real rotation minutes could help this team. So with that said, Raj, let's get into our personal trade deadline wish lists.
Okay.
Let's start with the 3-and-D guard section. Who would be, so 3-and-D guard, I bring this position up in particular because, we just brought up Marcus Smart, how great he is and everything, but we also don't want to necessarily fully rely on Marcus Smart because of his health issues, his age. Like we ideally would want to have the younger version of Marcus Smart to like back him up as insurance, but also carry him forward to the future as well. And I think, as much as we lament the defense and stuff, and everybody wants a 3-and-D wing, which we'll also get to, I actually think we need more of that. And Marcus Smart isn't even necessarily this as well. I feel like Vando does a better job than Marcus Smart of slithering through screens and guarding the point of attack ball handler who can be like a point guard, shooting guard. And Marcus Smart's like the guy who's like an all utility defender who, even if he gets switched on a big man, he can hold his own and all that stuff. And so I would like the Marcus Smart version, maybe even in his prime, but like the version of Marcus Smart that can actually lock down a Jalen Brunson,
Yeah.
So with that in mind, who would be like your top priority 3-and-D guard if you had your druthers? And we're not talking about trade logistics at this point or even what it'll take to get that guy, but it's like, hey, if this guy was available and we were able to get it done, this is my number one target.
Yeah. So, I mean, I try to sprinkle some reality into this, right? So I'm not like, let's go get the best 2-way, guard in the league. But I think these players are available. I don't understand the Keon Ellis thing in Sacramento. I don't understand it at all. People have said it's 3 different coaching staffs that have now decided that he does not deserve, playing time. Wow, Keon! Wow, nice. They anticipated. Yes, I got to watch him, in person, and that dude just picks up full court. He hits open threes from what I see. I don't know what the issue is, but it's a guy that I would love to go grab. He makes pennies. I mean, in relation to the NBA, he's on a 3-year, like $5 million deal. And so I don't know what the Kings are doing. They are somehow prioritizing Russell Westbrook and DeMar DeRozan minutes over seeing what Keon Ellis is. But in any case, that'd be a guy that I'd love. Another guy that's really interesting.
Sorry, before you move forward, really quickly on Keon Ellis, I think the other thing that makes him a very good target is he's only making like the minimum this year.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about the future and next summer or this upcoming summer, his cap hold is literally that amount. And so he's almost like negligible. He's like an incomplete roster charge. And so if the Lakers get him in now, we would still have that projected $53 to $55 million in cap space that everybody's throwing out there. And Keon Ellis would not eat into any of that until after we make all of our signings and then re-sign Austin Reeves and re-sign Keon Ellis. So that's like another reason why, outside of just like the on-court basketball play, that's another reason why you should probably think about getting Keon Ellis in, because as opposed to some of these other players who, like, let's say like a Benedict Mathurin, for example, like the Lakers will need to account for his $19 to $20 million cap hold, like he's going to actually eat up some space. Keon Ellis is $2 million and it's negligible, so that's another thing I want to bring up.
Yeah. And again, I would love to know what the issue is down there in Sacramento, why he, for some reason, cannot get minutes on a team that is awful. But in any case, that'd be the guy that I'd love to go get. And again, he makes nothing this season. Another guy I think is interesting that is for some reason available, and I think it's mostly contractually, is Quentin Grimes. I don't follow as closely as I'd like to, but I've always, just been a fan of, I guess, his size at that position. He gives a little bit more ball handling than probably that starting lineup would need. but I do like him as like a big defensive type of guard. Slot him a little bit more where he doesn't have to have the usage that he did in previous, spaces. But it's another guy that doesn't make very much, and obviously had the huge dispute over the summer with the Sixers. Ended up staying on, but he'll be an unrestricted free agent, I believe, and
Yep.
so he will be gone from Philly, I believe, the second that he's available to be. Another guy you can kind of, trade expiring for expiring. The last guy I'll throw at you before you go, you give your opinion on Quentin Grimes. It's a guy that I've gotten very polarizing answers about this, and he has a team option, next. I think he has a player option, so it wouldn't be as clean. But I wouldn't be mad at a KCP reunion. I think he's out in, like, he's just being wasted in that Memphis situation. I got to see him up close. He's not the player that he was, but I think he's just a two guard that understands winning basketball. And I think that's important, right? Like, I think he's been in a lot of winning basketball the last few years, obviously with Denver and then with the Lakers in 2020. I just think that's a player that still has a little bit of juice left. If you can't find nothing else, I wouldn't be mad at a KCP reunion. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Would you say that KCP is like your realistic option? Because out of the two, I feel like if the Lakers were actually willing to take on salary, it would be pretty realistic. It's actually on the Lakers side that I'm not sure that they would be.
Yeah.
So I'll hit KCP first because in theory I like KCP. I am just so scared, Raj, that it's like we're trading for a Torian Prince at $22 million for next season. I'm not worried about this year or whatever. I'm just,
that's fair.
One, it tells me two things. One, if we trade for KCP, it's like, okay, he is going to eat into like our cap space for this upcoming summer. That's like $22 million. What that tells me is you don't think that there's anybody else better that we can get than KCP. So, fair. I mean, obviously you can flip his contract because he'll be expiring next summer, but I always worry about these players who are above 30 years old already. And sure. I also worry about them because they naturally come with a pedigree and resume that the coaches trust, to the point where, KCP may still be good, but to what extent is he still good, and how far does his resume carry him in the eyes of the coach, and how much leash does he have? And we might be in the same scenario where we're like, hey, maybe KCP shouldn't be playing 32 minutes and he's playing $22 million. Don't feel beholden to doing that because, so those are the things that I worry about with KCP. Although I will agree on paper, like if this guy was bought out, yeah, absolutely. Let's go KCP.
That's a good point.
But that's what I would say about KCP. Now, with regards to my list of, my wish list for 3-and-D guard, my pipe dream priority is Quentin Grimes. Oh wait, sorry. This is yours. Sorry. Hold on. Quentin Grimes, Jonathan's wish list 3-and-D guard. So I bring up Quentin Grimes just because we've already seen like a proof of concept with him with Luka Doncic. I mean, that's literally the guy that they, I don't know why they traded him after they traded Luka Doncic.
That's almost as worse of a trade.
Yeah, I know that's like a sore spot for Mavs fans, but it's telling that they pegged him as a guy that they would sign. Actually, they traded for him with the Detroit Pistons. But I like Quentin Grimes because he gives us like a floor, but also a ceiling. Obviously, the stuff that he did with the Sixers tail end of last season with the high usage, like that's not going to be his role in the NBA necessarily. I just like to know that you can do that, So like that would have been helpful in Austin Reeves' absence the last, couple, like the last month or so. And at his baseline though, Quentin Grimes is like a 3-and-D player who can actually handle the ball a little bit. He's actually more athletic than people I think know. And he's just like a legitimate volume 3-point shooter as well. He's not like the best lockdown defender, but he's a little bit like Jake LaRavia with regards to like positionally, he'll just be in the right spots and he actually tries on defense. And that's kind of, especially with the schemes that we've been running recently, you kind of just need smart players to be able to carry it out, especially when we're playing those modified zones. It's like Quentin Grimes can help, So, and he's got good positional size at like 6'4", 6'5". So
I'd be just concerned about the fit of another, I think Quentin Grimes has, aspirations of being of a lot more than an $8 million player. And so you throw that into the construct of this team where I think the hierarchy is kind of set, where it's LeBron or is Luka, LeBron, and Austin already sharing a lot of that, and you throw another guy in that believes that he's, and I think rightfully so. Quentin Grimes has shown that you give him enough usage, he can average, 18 to 20 points and do it on a pretty efficient scoring way. But yeah, that's would be my concern. But again, the talent is the talent. And I think the way I've kind of framed these, because I think I've said this in the show already, I'm not sure how much they want to give up first round picks to, marginally move, which I know upsets kind of how people see this. Any move to improve your chances at the title should be taken. But again, I think there is some long-term thinking here where, hey, is it worth moving our first to go get, a player that really doesn't change our situation against a team like Denver or a team like Houston or, like that. So that's some of the conversation that comes up. But I think all of these guys, you should probably be able to get for second round picks pretty much. Quentin Grimes maybe would cost you more, but again, I think Philly is losing him anyway. So I doubt the offers are coming in too hot for him. But yeah, that's where I'm kind of framing this. And the Lakers have one pick to move and expirings, which do have some value, but those expiring players are so unhelpful. Other than Rui is the only one, and you trade Rui, you better get something back that is as helpful. And so that's a tough place to kind of walk. But yeah, I think all those guys are at least attainable in some capacity with the assets the Lakers have.
Yeah, something that I'll say that I haven't brought up yet is I feel like this is going to be the trade. I hope this is the trade deadline for Rob Pelinka. I hope this is the trade deadline for the pick swaps, because I do think that this is like a cost inefficiency or whatever the term is in the trade deadline. And the Dallas Mavericks got out ahead of this because they were able to trade their pick swap to the OKC Thunder for a 2024 first that was in like the late 20s. But then they took that pick and then traded it to the Washington Wizards for Daniel Gafford. They just traded a pick swap. The Lakers have 5 pick swaps to use. And I know like people don't like to trade with the Lakers, but I don't know. I feel like we could get something done there if we needed a lesser valued first, And so I hope Rob Pelinka's creative enough to know that. It seems like with the recent reports that like he's trying to turn the 2031 first into like 2 more first. It's kind of same line of thinking, but we shall see. Last note on Quentin Grimes is I would assume that if the Lakers traded for him, they're telling him, hey, rest of this season, 3-and-D role that you've been accustomed to. When LeBron is gone, you're the starting 3 or starting 2 next to Austin. And, maybe you'll not get the same usage you got with the Sixers, but could you be a perennial 17-point scorer, knocking down 40% from 3 next to Luka? Yes. And I would also assume if the Lakers made a trade like this, they have been at least putting out the feelers with his agent with regards to what type of contract are you looking for next year, I don't think they're going to trade for this guy and all of a sudden be surprised that he wants $25 million. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that. Having said that, if he only costs like a second round pick, even if that is the case, I'd be like, okay, let's just do it. So I feel like Grimes is like a pretty good like hedge in the middle with regards to if he's not going to cost that much, I don't know,
Yeah, why not take a chance
on him? Exactly.
Yeah, and the talent is the talent. I mean, I think he's shown that he's, one of the most talented scoring, at least type of guards that's available right now. And maybe Philly might just say, we're keeping you. Like we're having a pretty, we have a much better season. We want to keep this going. Joel Embiid's health is is not clear, and the offers aren't great. But yeah, I think that's a guy that I think you'd go after. And again, it's tough if you're not throwing the first into the table. It really and you top on that, you don't want to add salary going to the following year because Jonathan, most players that are good have long contracts. That's how this works. They sign contracts and they're usually not free agents that are coming up. They usually have extensions signed. So you're kind of picking already in a group that's already kind of less than the talent of the league. But yeah, Quentin Grimes would be interesting. I think Keon Ellis would probably be the one that I'd call Sacramento every day and go, hey, like, do you want a shooting guard that, has lost confidence here, but we send him up the road? He might find something with your team, have a little bit of a swap there. But to your point, they did trade a swap a year ago. Now it was for a center, but that is no longer available for us. But so I do think Rob is creative enough to at least do that. I don't know how much, again, the urgency will be for this team. And so that's what we'll see.
Hey, but if you look at it this way, technically we already traded the 2030 swap for Mark Williams, right? So we don't have it anymore. So we might as well
Right.
do something with that, you know? So
It's gone.
I'm seeing this comment that says like Quentin Grimes needs the ball too much. I don't agree with that because outside of one half season with the 76ers, he's pretty much just been a tertiary player. So that's actually what I like about Grimes is that yes, he might have higher aspirations for himself, but as baseline, it's like he was groomed to be this like guy on the perimeter who doesn't need the ball. It just so happens that he showed like, oh, I can do some stuff too, and I may want to explore that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. The other name that I want to bring up before I get to my realistic bargain bin player for this section is Ayo Dosunmu, because I don't think the Chicago Bulls will necessarily let him go. It seems like they're more inclined to let Kobe White go. But if they were to make him available, here's a guy who's sort of like, I feel like he's an in between Keon Ellis and Quentin Grimes, where it's like he can handle the rock and play make a little bit more than Keon Ellis and actually score a little bit more as well. So it's like Keon Ellis morphing. It's like if you're looking at the evolution, it's sort of like Keon Ellis, Ayo Dosunmu, and then Quentin Grimes with regards to who's the most fully well-rounded player. But let's move on. I want to give you a realistic bargain bin player for this that won't like literally it's probably one of those we're just moving chairs on the Titanic sort of deal, but I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. Like before I go, and I'm talking about like bottom bin, like veteran minimum, not necessarily veteran minimum, but like you can do this trade whenever you want to. Before I go, do you have anybody in, like for that in that line of thinking? Like literally, like why would you even do this?
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't really think of one that like you can get done tomorrow, you would say, and the other team would agree. Oh, wow.
Okay, so here we go. This is my realistic bargain bin central. Jose Alvarado and Lonzo Ball, who we just saw play in garbage time. Lonzo Ball hasn't even been playing like real rotation minutes for the Cavs, and he's been shooting like 25% from the field this season. But if we're talking about flyers on guys who have like a team option, Lonzo Ball's on a $10 million team option next season, former Laker. I would still like him better than Gabe Vincent because of the positional size. Not sure you can count on him health wise, but I don't know. Like even with regards to his like bad shooting percentages, I think I'd take a flyer on him if that's the only move we do instead of Gabe Vincent. I'd at least be a little bit more intrigued by that. And then Jose Alvarado, I feel like is the player that the Lakers thought they were getting when they signed Gabe Vincent. So what are your thoughts on those two players with regards to realistic bargain bin? Like, hey, we could probably do this for a second.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give away my, forwards on this, but just from these comments, I think the Lakers are too unathletic in way too many places already. And Jose Alvarado, huge credit to him for the career he's already panned out in the NBA for being his size. I think he's a better shooter than he gets credit for as well because he does all the other antics that you lose sight of the skill that he actually has. But I just don't want another guy with his size being an option in the rotation. I think your point about switching out chairs is apt because I think Gabe Vincent fills this role, and Gabe I think is actually better than Jose, at least at having a strength component to him where he doesn't get back down in the same way, but the size is the size. Now Lonzo is interesting. That was a guy I actually really did think about. I haven't followed Cleveland as closely just with the schedule. I don't watch as many East Coast games as I wish I could. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing. I was high on his fit in Cleveland. Cleveland hasn't had the season I'm sure that they wanted. I'm not sure they would still just give you Lonzo Ball for Gabe Vincent. So I'm not sure how that trade would
I think they would. They have, I mean, I guess he's on a team option, but they are like they're paying a lot of money for this team, and they're going to be like a repeater team soon too. So I feel like if they can get any assets, they would just move. That's why they're trying to get rid of DeAndre Hunter so feverishly. It's like,
he's been the name that's dominated. But yeah, look, I wouldn't be mad at Alonzo reunion at all. Again, I don't know how much he would help this season. I think it's more of a bet on, hey, let's get him in. Let's try to rehabilitate his health. And maybe next season on, because he's picking up that. Oh, it's a team option actually, right? Or is it a player option? Oh, it's a team option. Okay, then I guess you would be betting on this season. Yeah, I don't know. I think Alonzo also comes with a name that you probably have to play in a way, and so I don't. Yeah, but I would love it for the sentimental value. Lonzo's one of my favorite Lakers of the last decade. I had a lot of fun watching him. Wasn't as much as you would like, just because of the health that has followed his career. But I wouldn't be mad at, just getting him in for that reason. But yeah, that's a tough one.
For sure. All right. So that does it for the 3-and-D guard section. Raj, let's move on to the 3-and-D wing section, which is like everybody, this is what we want pretty much every single year.
Yeah.
Who would give me your top priority pipe dream target if we can make it happen in this list?
So my first name is a name that I don't think a lot of people would think that I would say. And so the 3-and-D part is the D part probably isn't as strong with this name. It also kills a lot of the free agency, cap space stuff. But if you're just trying to go for this year, I wouldn't be mad at like a Michael Porter Jr. if that's possible. Like, again, I think the contractual stuff probably makes it too complicated. Brooklyn would probably ask for too much, maybe not. What just looking at this team from like who they're coached by in JJ Redick, I think we're missing a movement shooter. Like, we just don't have one. Austin is kind of our best movement shooter, but he's kind of surpassed the line of a guy that you just run those type of plays for, right? And like, Austin has become the guy that no, I want the Luka plays. Like, I want the LeBron plays. I get the ball at the top of the key and I get to decide what I run, right? No other player on the roster is a movement shooter other than Dalton, but he's just not good enough at that role. Michael Porter Jr. would break like our offensive sets in a way that I think no other player has. Again, the defense stuff is concerning. His contract is what it is. That's a guy that I just thought about. And then the other, I want to hear your answer, your thoughts though on Michael Porter Jr.
That's interesting. I actually brought up his name in like last month. I did this segment called like wings we'd hate to trade for, or like Lucha Girl wings, where you'd kind of be like, I don't know about. And I brought up his name because I was like, I don't know. He's playing like an all-star this year. Obviously, some of that is inflated by his situation with the Nets and getting as much usage. But there was a period in December when the Nets were actually just winning games, and Michael Porter Jr. was leading the way in that respect. But I think you brought up a good point with regards to sometimes you got to get the players that the coach will actually play and gravitate towards and could actually utilize. And so from that perspective, it's an interesting one. I will say, like, it's probably, and I guess this is why this is called the pipe dream section, but if his contract wasn't $38 million, I feel like this would be a lot more feasible. Sure. And it seems like the Nets actually want a first round pick for this guy. I don't think 100%. We'd be trading a first round pick for $38 million this year and then $40 million next season. But I do think it's like an interesting skill set to talk about because, Klay Thompson could be a buyout guy. And so I feel like the Lakers would probably go with, well, we're not going to trade assets for Michael Porter Jr., but we'll get Klay Thompson for free, right? And have JJ Redick work with him. So in terms of opening up that discussion, I think it's interesting. Although props to Michael Porter Jr. for sort of flipping that deal with the Denver Nuggets on its head, because now it seems like, Cam Johnson hasn't played, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, and I understand why a lot of Laker fans flush away the Denver series, right? Like, plural, because it's not fun to think about losing, the way we did. But if you go back and watch those games, like, yes, Jokic killed us. Yes, Jamal Murray did his thing. Michael Porter Jr. absolutely fried the Lakers in 2020. I believe in 2023. He had a game, I think, where he did not miss. And just have a guy that you trust when the lights are on can hit. Right now, he does a lot of other stuff that is, he can lose sight of his defensive responsibilities, but I think he brings, a lot of help on the boards. He's a really good rebounder. You're not getting the all-star in Brooklyn because his usage just won't be what it is there. But again, he's super expensive, but that's why he was on kind of the pipe dream. I may even piss you off again with the realistic bargain target because this is another player that is super polarizing. He's not in the Lonzo Ball bucket of like, of players that you can just get for anything. But I'm a contextualize this, Jonathan. Before the season started, I was extremely excited about Duthiero. I think you were as well. We were both super hyped about Duthiero. I thought like eventually he would play. And my reasoning was, if you list the team 1 through 12 or whatever, 1 through 15, excuse me, Duthiero was the best athlete on the team, not named LeBron James. And LeBron's 41 now. So I say all that to say, I think a guy like Kuminga is available. Now,
Oh.
should you go get Kuminga? I'm not sure. He makes a lot of money, but he has a team option for next year. So it's literally this season. You could swap. It looks like the Warriors are done with him. Everything that comes out from Steve Kerr's mouth sounds like he doesn't want to be in 10 feet from Kuminga, let alone putting him on his basketball court. But that's a guy I think you could probably get. And I think he just raises your athletic floor, like the baseline of your athleticism, to a point that's at least that's helpful, even if all the other stuff he does just doesn't fit. And I think like that's a guy that another name is Andrew Wiggins, who has $30 million next year, which is why he's not on this list. But like I think a lot about Wiggins in Minnesota, where it's like that's just a place that wasn't really. Now, obviously, Kuminga is in more of a winning environment than Wiggins was, but obviously Wiggins didn't feel like what he was doing was appreciated in Minnesota, or just he was not seen as that type of winning player. And I'm wondering if just a fresh scenery for Kuminga could do that.
Mhm.
And again, it's nothing to lose. You're not going to give up a first round pick for Jonathan Kuminga. You're going to give up expirings that hopefully aren't playing or something. Gabe Vincent feels like a Steve Kerr type of guy, both Southern California dudes that can connect on that. But yeah, just what are your thoughts on, I guess, Kuminga's name in all this?
Kuminga was in that same episode of Kombucha Girl Wings that we would, which is perfect, right? I like Jonathan Kuminga because he's just, to your point, he's like a Duthiero in terms of explosive smash mouth athleticism. That's just, whoa, I've never seen anything like that. He had a nasty one on Jake LaRavia earlier on in the season, like a left-handed crusher dunk. If we don't have to trade Rui Hachimura for Jonathan Kuminga, sign me up. Jonathan Kuminga seems to me like the type of player that we would do that, like, let's trade a pick swap for like a 2027 first protected and like send it to the Warriors and just free them of this situation.
Yeah.
If that's the case, yes, because it also does something for us in the summer where, maybe we're having negotiations with Rui Hachimura and we're like, hey, we can just keep Jonathan Kuminga on his team option. So either accept this or we're just going to roll with Jonathan Kuminga. So it helps in that respect too. I don't know necessarily if I would do like a Rui for a Kuminga swap, because I feel like that's what the Warriors would want. They're like, give us the guy who's okay playing off ball and we'll complain about this stuff. But if we can quote unquote get him for free for assets that we sort of materialize out of thin air due to some creativity, absolutely. I mean, we just need that type of, we need that up and down transition play who can also catch lobs and all this stuff. Like that's the type of player that you need next to Luka. We always talk about getting a lob threat big for Luka, but I would love to get like a wing threat, lob threat big, or a lob threat wing for Luka, a lob threat guard for Luka. This is why I've been advocating for a guy like KJ Martin, who's just like floating around out there in free agency, not being signed. Maybe that's for a reason, but I feel like he would help this team. So in terms of Kuminga, yeah, sign me up if it doesn't cost us really anything. So
yeah, and what Kuminga is kind of attack for in Golden State, he's probably told here like, hey, we actually need like Kuminga in Golden State. It's like, I don't want to go set 50 split screens for Steph Curry. I want the ball at the top of the key, and I want to be able to use my handle and my spin move and get to the rim. And I mean, if you think about it from his perspective, and his agent had maybe the craziest tour I've ever seen from an agent. Like that's just nuts. But I think if you listen to kind of the crux of it, like, look, he played in a playoff game and dropped 30 without playing. He wasn't even in the rotation. He just walked in and had a 30-point game.
Yeah.
And he starts this season again out. Well, he played and he's out of the rotation for guys like Guy Santos, right? No disrespect to Guy Santos, but I think the talent discrepancy between Kuminga and him, I think is pretty clear. And I think the Lakers need a guy sometimes where, hey, these second unit scorings, Jonathan, I think we're last in the league in bench scoring still. Yeah. Right. And so you get a guy that can give you an offensive punch off the bench. And again, there's a reason he's available. There's a reason, even though we love Keon Ellis, there's a reason Keon Ellis is available. There's a reason KJ Martin is unsigned, right? Like there's reasons these players are available to you, but you have to be able to read, okay, but can that guy help me in some capacity? And I think Kuminga's athleticism, I think he's a better shooter than he gets credit for. I think he's a better cutter as well. Now he doesn't want to do all the other things. He hasn't been the lockdown defender that the Warriors, I'm sure, want him to be. But from Kuminga's point of view, it's like, hey, like I get no credit for doing any of those things. You don't play me. You don't let me do what I want to do. And so I'd just be interested to see if he'd be open to that, and it'd be a risk, right? But I think, again, if you can get him, to your point, without giving up Rui, you're obviously not going to give him a first round pick. But if you can get him for salary like Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent, which are both guys, I think that would be respected in the Warriors system, right? These Al Horford is there, like all these guys, they're building this vet team. I don't know. I think it fits in a way. Now the trade would be attacked, and it would be super polarizing. But I think just getting some athletic juice there's a reason to me why Vando, who has no skills other than play hard, and right, like no disrespect to it, but like there's no actual offensive skills there, but he's still super impactful because this team is dying for athletic juice across the roster, and Vando brings that specifically. And even if he can't score layups, it's completely effective. And I think Kuminga just brings in other talent while also having the ability to affect the game athletically.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, there's like long-term implications to him as well, because once LeBron's gone, you do need to fill all of a sudden those forward positions. So Raj, I'm not going to knock you too much. You took the 3-and-D side of things. You took that term very loosely, but that's okay. You went with it the way that you did. I'm glad that you did. I will go and give you, for my pipe dream target, my priority target, I could have gone with Herb Jones or Trey Murphy, right? Everybody was talking about Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. I'm going to go with someone, and I kind of leaned into like the pipe dream target of it all. Not, like, now I'm not saying like Mikal Bridges. That's not the type of pipe dream I'm talking about. I'm talking about a name that hasn't come up yet. I don't think he's necessarily available. I also wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden he was available, but I would think about it in the next coming years. But my pipe dream wing target would be, pipe dream 3-and-D wing target would be Aaron Nesmith. So Aaron Nesmith is not necessarily 6'7", 6'8". I think he's like 6'5", 6'6", but he essentially plays the small forward position, right? And I've actually made this comp before for like a high-end ceiling comp for Adu Thiero if his three-point shot ever rounds into form. But I feel like Aaron Nesmith has that type of explosive athleticism and physicality that we'd want. Obviously, the Pacers made it all the way to the finals last season. Aaron Nesmith was a huge part of that. The reason why he's a pipe dream is I don't obviously think that the Pacers would be willing to give him up. But the more and more I think about it, I'm like, could he be the next like Herb Jones, who's kind of like, okay, like if you look at his stats this season, he probably command a first, but I'm also starting to wonder, like, can this guy actually be gettable? Because it's not like he's a 17-point Mikal Bridges type wing, right? It's kind of very similar to Herb Jones, except he's an actual 3-point shooter, except this year his numbers are all the way down. But he's the type of guy that I would be sort of pining for, even though I know it's like not realistic. So obviously Herb Jones would be at the top of this list, but I just wanted to provide somebody that, hasn't been talked about too much. What are your thoughts on Aaron Nesmith?
Yeah, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, both those guys obviously would fit well. I just can't see New Orleans parting with either of them for the package we have. I see Aaron Nesmith in that same vein. Now, I think his playoff runs have been too good to steal away for what the Lakers can possibly give up. I don't take any of his numbers this year for anything. That guy is an absolute gamer. That dude is a winner. I watched him defend Shai Gilgeous-Alexander better than I think I've seen any player do it. I thought he was awesome on him. And I think he brings a two-way play that I think if you can get him, that'd be amazing. I just don't see Indiana parting with him. Yeah. But I'd love to have him. He's awesome. I put a lot of stock, Jonathan, into playoff performance. Mm-hmm. I think it's why both of us were super high on Austin Reeves very early, because he came to the playoffs right away and was awesome. Aaron Nesmith was awesome in the postseason. And I feel like he's part of their core going forward, I would think. And so I'm guessing they would want to see another year. But I can imagine Indiana fans would be happy if they sent him to LA, especially after the magical Cinderella run they had last year. Cinderella, respectfully, right? Now, I don't think it was a fake run or anything, but coming from where they did. But I would love Aaron Nesmith. That's a type of player I would try to get, but I think to the conversation that we've had this whole time, this is why those guys are extremely valuable. That's why they're not available very, very many times. But somehow OKC has 50 of them. But
the other thing I'll say about Aaron Nesmith that I really like is, you can get 3-and-D wings or whatever, and they can do a really good fundamental job playing defense. But Aaron Nesmith is also just an explosive ass athlete that, like, you've seen some of his putback dunks and you're like, whoa, what the heck? Like it's like a combination of all those things. So so let me give you now, I'm actually more intrigued by my realistic bargain bin targets because I really go like bottom seller
Sure.
basement level. So here are my realistic bargain bins. You gave Jonathan Kuminga. I went 5 rungs even lower than that.
Oh
But
man.
here we go. I feel like the Lakers can do this for a second. Dalton Connect, whatever. All right, we got Jeremy Sohan and Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji is having a terrible season. I don't know what happened this year. Maybe he's not getting the consistent rotation minutes, but last year he was like a 40% three-point shooter. I feel like he's only shooting 25% this year. I don't know. Asterisk that. Regardless, I just put out a video, a player breakdown on Jeremy Sohan, talking about his defense, his offense, and obviously he's getting DNP'd by the San Antonio Spurs. Apparently, reports are out that his agent has been granted the ability to go out and try and find a trade for him. But this is a player who, prior to this season, was perennially averaging 11 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Yes, he's not shooting threes, but it's like he does have one season where he did hit 73s before. It was just something Vando has never come close to doing. So there's at least a little bit of proof of concept. But regardless, with Sohan, I'm not even thinking about three-point shooting necessarily.
Sure.
And when I dug into his tape, I'm like, wait, I understand why, like, you know, I understand his flaws, obviously.
Sure.
And the Spurs situation is a little bit unique just because they have such an influx of young talent and they're still playing Harrison Barnes. So to me, it makes sense why necessarily he wouldn't be part of the rotation. But when I watched his defensive tape, I don't think I've seen somebody as flexible and agile as him move on the perimeter and be able to switch, literally switch 1 through 5. We use that term kind of loosely, but Sohan can actually switch 1 through 5 because he's pretty physical as well. I've kind of described him as like Draymond Green in like Kyle Kuzma's body with regards to like how he plays defense, you know? So I really like Jeremy Sohan. And I think if the biggest obstacle to a deal with Sohan is the fact that the Lakers and Spurs haven't made a deal in forever, it feels like. But if his agent is like, hey, we want to go to the Lakers, can you just get a Dalton Connect for him or like a pick swap or add a third team and get the player that you want? This is a player that I'd be willing to add on to this team, even though he's not necessarily the 3. It would be like tacking on like a better, more fully rounded version of Vando. Like Vando's sort of evolving into Jake LaRavia kind of, but it's kind of the same thing. But, you know, at the top of the show, you mentioned the 3 guys that you're excited about: Jake LaRavia, Marcus Smart, Jared Vanderbilt. Jeremy Sochan will kind of be part of that group. Now, I know I'm talking about Sohan and Vanderbilt will probably murder this dude in the locker room. But putting that to the side, what are your thoughts on Sohan as a bargain bin target?
Yeah, I'm going to start in a weird place where, like, and I say this fondly, like this is a compliment to me. He brings a level of crazy that I think every team needs, right? And so I actually like that in role players. Not every role player. You don't want a team full of Jeremy Sohans, but I think every team at least needs one guy. Right now, the guy doing that role is Vando, and I think it's good. I think Vando does it well. I think sometimes Vando thinks that's his only job on the team, and so I would like him sometimes to understand that he's actually way more important to what we're doing than just being, you know, an agitator or an instigator in different situations. Another kind of touring this in, I haven't watched as much Jeremy Sohan, but I'm with you. I like his defensive, at least potential that he's shown on the Spurs. Something that we don't have that stood out to me, like just watching, especially in the playoffs last year, but seeing this with different teams, we don't have someone to me that can ball pressure well or consistently enough, right? Marcus Smart sometimes can do it, but you don't want him tasked with that. Again, Vando is just a little too volatile as a defender that I trust to just have him pick up full court on different guys. That's something I think Jeremy Sohan can probably bring. Agbaji, I'm not sure. Yeah.
So sorry, one thing about Sohan, he's crazy with regards to, this is gonna sound silly, but like, I think there was one thing that Cam Reddish did pretty well that not a lot of Lakers did, and it was kind of navigating through screens because he was very like slippery.
Right.
Sohan has that ability, plus he's very physical about it too. And so when I see him pressuring up court and like chasing Paul George and snaking through the screens along with him, multiple screens, I'm like, that's it. That's the type of guy that we need right there. Like not just anybody in space can sort of, you know, guard man to man. And even Rui can do it. But what happens when they put you in a bunch of ball screens? That's when our team like looks like chickens with their heads cut off. And I'm watching Sohan continually stay attached to his guy. And even if he's a step behind, he's always rushing back into the play and recovering. And so I'm like, we need more of those types of guys. So to your point, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've just really missed for a while. And when you start a backcourt of Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, like you're just not going to have a lot of ball pressure going on, right? Especially in the backcourt. That's where like other positions need to be filled. Now, I am concerned with a guy like I remember. I know you mentioned 3-point shooting, but I'm concerned. Someone that shoots 25%. I just think when you're playing next to these type of ball handlers, you need confident shooting. And I think our coach believes in that. Like, I think our coach is playing Vando kind of because he's forced to, right? I really think JJ believes in, having spacing from at least 4 of the spots. If he had his wish, Maxi Kleber would be a big part of this rotation. Maxi is just too old and too many miles on him. But I think that's why Drew Timme got a shot, right? Like, yeah. Drew can shoot. Now not shoot great, but he shot well in his NBA tenure so far. And I think that's why he's getting a shot. But again, yeah, I think these are, I'm with you. I think these are realistic names. I didn't know that the Spurs and Lakers have not made a trade in that long. I did not realize that, but that makes sense to me from how these two franchises have operated. But yeah, I think that's a role. And I was going to mention during the Aaron Nesmith part as well. Like, these are super athletes. Like, that's why I mentioned Kuminga is obviously not Aaron Nesmith, but I'm sure if you go ask Jonathan Kuminga, hey, how do you see yourself versus Aaron Nesmith? He's probably like, I'm just as good as that dude. If I played on the Pacers next to Tyrese Halliburton instead of Steph Curry, respectfully, I'm sure. But like, as a guy, Tyrese obviously plays a really different style. And the Pacers play like a run and up style where Obi Toppin looks like this incredible player, right? And you take Halliburton away, Obi Toppin comes back to earth a little bit. That's another player I would love to go get. But
if he was healthy, yeah.
Yeah, if he was healthy. So that's why, like, I mentioned like Kuminga, you mentioned Aaron Nesmith, who's obviously shown a lot more. But I think the Lakers just need athleticism. I think that's where Sohan fits. Sohan fits as well.
Sohan. Yep.
Sohan. Yeah.
So that's my list for 3-and-D wings. Let's really quickly close this out and talk about centers. The reason why I bring up centers is obviously DeAndre Ayton's like waning motor has been a hot topic recently. And even before this happened, I was like, maybe we need to add some insurance for him. There are very few situations where I think we'd actually trade DeAndre Ayton because, as I think Mike Dunleavy said, there needs to be a demand if you make a demand or something like that. There needs to be a market if you want to trade somebody. So with that said, I do think that it would be useful for the Lakers to, even if it's not necessarily to supplant DeAndre Ayton now, but if they can get, their center for the future in this trade deadline, that would be great. But who would be your like top priority pipe dream for a center, even though it's not necessarily like 100% need right now?
Yeah, I think something I've learned with Luka is he wants a big that rolls hard, and he really wants a vertical spacer. I think all the pretty short roll stuff with Ayton is nice and it looks good on paper, and the mid range shooting is what it is. I don't think that's something that Luka really wants to have. I think he wants a player that's around the rim that he could just throw it up to. Nick Claxton is kind of the name that I've thought of the most. I think I think his contract extends past next season, but I think he's on a pretty good deal. That'd be kind of my pipe dream one. I think probably Brooklyn would ask for more than they would, than the Lakers have to kind of give right now. But Nick Claxton, I think kind of fits that. Now you would have some overlap. He's better than Jackson Hayes, but I think both of them fill very similar type of needs. I think Jackson's been better than I expected this season, but what do you think of Nick Claxton?
So I will go with Nick Claxton is also my top priority, so I might as well just talk about him. He's my priority for a lot of reasons, but mainly because his contract is not that onerous. Like, it actually de-escalates. And Nick Claxton, while obviously you will have some issues with regards to how frail he is, that dude is almost like a wing defender at the center position. There are costs and benefits to obviously him being as thin as he is, but the benefits are like, especially with the way that the Lakers have been playing defense, right? Where you want to be a little bit more frenetic and have a little bit more mobility. Like, Nick Claxton fits that to a T, and he can really create some havoc and get us out into transition. We might have problems against Jokic for sure, definitely. We'll have to find a way to address that. Maybe we can get Nick Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe, but in terms of like, for the most part, I feel like, to your point, he would help us out both on the offensive end and the defensive end, really getting Luka that release valve vertical lob threat instead of always like Luka being like, what the heck, why didn't you catch that?
Yeah.
And Nick Claxton too is, I believe there were a couple seasons where he like finished in the top 10 of defensive player of the year, if not finished in some all defense teams as well. So
yeah, it's funny because you brought up the like he wouldn't be able to help against Jokic. No one will help against Jokic.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had Anthony Davis in the middle, and there was just
true.
nothing you could do. So I the center position I don't really frame in that way. Ayton actually has had okay games against Jokic. He actually plays him, I think, better than most centers do. But yeah, I think the center of the future, and I'm kind of disappointed. I thought Ayton would have a better offensive fit with Luka.
Yeah.
Now there's still time left. There's still games left. I think Ayton has connected more with Austin, strangely. Like those two have had a better synergy on the floor. But just realistically, I think probably Day'Ron is probably the most realistic. I could see Day'Ron Sharpe. He has I think team option for next season. The Nets do like him, but I feel like that's a guy you can maybe go grab. He's kind of he's in the rotation, but just a bruising type of center. I would like some kind of differential from Jackson, who honestly didn't even play in the playoffs last year. But Day'Ron's probably my most realistic center. Jared Allen is another name. If he didn't make $30 million a year for the next three years, I would love him. But center option isn't like it's not littered with great options, right?
Yeah.
Porzingis is another name, but he's having some strange health issues that makes me worried. I think he has to focus on that actually right now. But yeah, the center market isn't filled with great guys, which is why I think Ayton is going to stay on the team, Jonathan, if I would expect. I'd be shocked if he gets moved. But yeah, those are kind of the names I see at the center spot.
I would be interested in seeing if Rob tries to do the Mark Williams redux, but do it with Yves Missy, because it's essentially the same idea, right? Let's get like the 21-year-old sort of young center who's a lot. And I think Yves is actually a better long-term fit next to Luka, just because he's an explosive smash mouth type of athlete who can catch lobs and all this stuff. But we'll see if anything materializes. But with regards to my realistic bargain, I really went bottom dweller again, just because I want to make sure that this can actually get done. And I think I've landed on two guys who I'm like, dude, we just need to back up DeAndre Ayton somehow. It's like last year was like, we need to back up or Jackson or get someone above him. Like now we need to back up the center who, in case anything happens. So here are my bargain bin options.
Okay.
Jock Landale and Kevon Looney. So Jock Landale is on an expiring veteran minimum contract. Kevon Looney has a team option for next season. It's $8 million. And I was just thinking about what this team needs. And Kevon Looney obviously is not like at these days, you're not counting on him to play even 18 minutes a night, every night, right? But if I'm thinking about what he did and what he still can do in terms of eat up space in the paint, rebound, be physical, just be a smart player out there. I'm like, hey, if DeAndre doesn't have it on a particular night in the playoffs, put Kevon Looney out there and let him do veteran big type things and muck shit up in the paint. And this is a name that I actually just thought about today. I was like, you know what? Kevon Looney might actually help this team. Not every night, but situationally in the playoffs, if DeAndre is just not in the right headspace, and maybe Kevon Looney can even help him out in that respect. We could use this. He's not as good as Steven Adams, but kind of in the same vein, this Steven Adams vet physical rock in the paint that can help us out, And then Jock Landale is having a great season with the Memphis Grizzlies, which makes me think that he's probably not going to be available because they might be able to ship him out to a team with an actual asset potentially. But the Memphis Grizzlies might also be turning the page as well. And so they might just be like, whatever, sure, get Jock Landale. And the Lakers and Memphis seem to be feeder teams for one another. So it would only make sense. And I think there is some poetry to Jock Landale because he used to back up DeAndre Ayton when DeAndre Ayton wasn't in the right headspace for the Suns.
Yeah.
So these are two guys who are very realistic. It just depends on what the other teams want and if the Lakers are actually thinking about these guys. So
Yeah, Lawndale, I remember there was a game here against the Grizzlies when we were playing the Grizzlies where he like kicked our butt for a lot of that game. I think the Grizzlies were up like 15 or 18 when he came in and just started hitting threes,
Yep.
post ups. He's a super skilled big. I'm surprised he hasn't found a home. I think I liked him in Houston. He started off in Houston, I believe.
He
I
might
liked
actually
him.
go back to Houston since Steven Adams is out. They're like, hey, can
Oh,
we
that's
get him
Yeah,
back? So
that's a good point. Yeah, so Memphis always kind of gets these guys and they go on different places and thrive. But yeah, Lawndale's an interesting one. I'd be surprised again if Memphis throws him over here for the package that we'd probably offer. Looney's interesting. I didn't know that he was still under 30. I just checked that. He's
wait,
29
are
years
you kidding? No way.
old.
That's
If I
crazy.
Google's not incorrect, says he's 29 years old, which would not fit my
No, I
thinking
thought
at
he was like
all.
33.
Yeah, I thought he was like 33 or 34. I'm with you. I think he would help, in terms of at least having a different type of center. Now, I don't think he'd be a guy you rely on to play nightly,
Yeah.
but another guy that, has just played in a lot of very Marcus Smartish, where like he's just playing in a lot of big games and he's had a lot of, success, understands what it takes to win. A just dominant offensive rebounder. I think that's something that, the
Mhm.
team actually misses as well. Something that I thought Aiton would kind of contribute a little bit more in, but I like both of those. I don't see Lawndale, but Looney is interesting to me. That could be one where they just grant him his wish to get out of. Is he in New Orleans? Right?
New
He's on
Orleans,
the
all it
Pel-
would take is like Gabe or Maxi, and that's it, Honestly, I feel like we could get this done, and I feel like I don't know. Would you trade Dalton for that? Seems like we could probably get something better. But if that's like
right.
the only move we make, and we're like, why don't we just flip Dalton for a rotation player, like someone who could actually play in the playoffs? I feel like okay, yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I just can't see them doing that. I think they want a little bit more value for Dalton, but I can definitely see
yeah,
I think Gabe and Looney make the exact same amount. I think
yeah,
Looney
like
signed for
we
like
give him a second round pick for their troubles. Thank
for
you
the
for Kevon Looney.
right,
Yeah,
right, yeah, just take something else from New Orleans. But yeah, I think Looney would help in that capacity. I do. My only worry is again, I've been kind of preaching this athleticism, and I just putting another slow-footed
sure.
guy in in the lineup next
Yeah,
to Kevon Looney, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin. That's just not a lot of foot speed
yeah.
anywhere. Where somehow Rui looks like whatever the fastest runner is in the world from, but yeah, so that'd be kind of my concern there. But Looney would help, and he's a guy you could trust, and I'm sure JJ would trust. He sets hard, sometimes illegal screens,
Yeah.
but
There you
those
go.
help.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
open
Exactly.
stuff up. Wouldn't be mad at that. It's not even a name that I looked up. I had forgotten he's in the league, to be honest, because of New
Yeah, he's
Orleans.
wasting away on the New Orleans bench for some reason. I don't even know why they signed him this summer. I guess they had high aspirations for this season,
Yeah,
but yeah, okay. So we've pretty much almost got an hour and a half, Raj. I don't know. I mean, time flies when you're having fun and nerding out about the Lakers and basketball, I guess. I do have one
sure,
last question for you, and we can speed run through this. And
sure.
it's still in the same vein of the centers thing.
Okay.
What if I told you that we could? So back in 2023, the Lakers traded Thomas Bryant to the Nuggets for 3 seconds, which is amazing. The Nuggets were
Hmm.
just like throwing out seconds for free, I guess. What if I told you that there was a team that we could get 3 seconds for, and a team that wanted Aiton that would give us 3 seconds, and then we would
Okay.
be able to take those 3 seconds, give it to Brooklyn, and then get Dayron Sharp? Would you do something like that if it was to swap out DeAndre for Sharp? And it would be a little bit of a risk because DeAndre has more experience than Sharp. Obviously, he made it to the
Yeah.
finals, but maybe you're kind of hedging the future as well.
So you're saying like flip him to Indiana is what you would
Yeah, flip
kind
him
of.
to Indiana. Maybe the Cavs do some money maneuvering thing and they get rid of Jared Allen and they're like, we need a stopgap center. Okay, DeAndre Ayton would help. We'll give you something,
Yeah.
something like that.
You know what's so funny? This is a sidebar, but so a lot of people well, I've heard Indiana as a name for DeAndre Ayton. That just doesn't match DeAndre Ayton's play style at all to
Yeah,
me.
it
Like
does it.
Indiana
Yeah.
is this running gun, like
Yep.
we're gonna fly up and down, and you throw the plotting DeAndre Ayton right in the middle of that. I just find it I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not sure like how much interest they still have after 4 years ago. The player DeAndre Ayton today is a little different than the one that he was potentially supposed to be coming off that finals run with the Suns. I probably don't do that. I feel like you can get Dayron without giving up
Sure,
DeAndre
sure.
Ayton, I would feel. And I think he's another guy where I think, obviously, I'm not sure he's the center of the future. I do think this is part of the stuff with Ayton where he probably expected a little bit more, I don't know, credit, right? The team's 11 games
Mm-hmm.
above 500. He's looking around like, this team is good. Why am I in the headlines
Yeah.
every single day when we're winning? And so I'm sure this is part of the just human element with him too. But I think he's had a fine season. Now there's like he's had his Ayton moments where sometimes he'll take 5 shots, and he came out in the presser and said, I can't feed myself, right? Someone has to feed me. Which is another part of the transparency. But yeah, I don't think I would do that exactly, but I would love to get Dayron in some other way.
Okay, here's another name. What if we get those 3 seconds? Doesn't even matter what the team is. We managed to get 3 seconds for DeAndre. We shipped those
Okay.
3 seconds to Orlando, but we get Goga Batadze back.
Oh man. I'm still not sure Goga Batai is not just a mythical creature that is like that is rolling around. I haven't watched enough, so I'm not as privy to the information on him. He is a guy that I think a lot of people have liked. Again, I'm not sure I would like to trade out my starting center for
Sure.
him now, but are you high on him in that type
I'm
of
high on Goga, but he is, I think, for the future, ideally, you have him as a backup guy,
okay.
right? He's not like a lob threat by any means, but I feel like he's a really good hard screen setter, DHO sort of guy who rebounds the ball well, is I think has a higher motor than Aiden, but it would sort of be your like I think to your point, you would want these guys in addition to what we have because it doesn't
Right.
hurt to have three bigs versus replacing one for the other. Which leads me to my last question. Would you try and trade for Walker Kessler now? Like, let's say
Ooh,
it only takes the first round pick, and for our troubles, we get Walker Kessler, maybe Yusuf Nurkic, who has actually been killing it this year, and Kevin Love for shits and giggles because LeBron's still here and they can sort of, have some fun together on the
right.
tail end of this.
Sure.
But to me, I'm thinking about, well, it might be the perfect situation because one, his value is low. Maybe we can get him now for just one first. And then two, he's not playing, so it doesn't necessarily butt up against what DeAndre is doing. Although obviously he would feel the pressure, like, wait, why? Are you? So what?
Right.
Gone this season, So, but I think it's an interesting question to ask because it's like it. I feel like that's a player worth giving up a first for if what we saw in the first 7 games from him was real earlier on this season, and we kind of already sort of start the
Yeah.
pathway to this summer.
I think I would do that. I'm high on Kessler as just a defensive monster big who has enough offensive talent. I think he'd be kind of the Mark Williams 2.0 that you were
Mhm.
mentioning, right? It's kind of like we have identified who our center of the future is. That was Mark Williams at that time, didn't pan out. Walker Kessler, you have now moved towards him as identifying that. I wouldn't be mad at that, especially if it only costs you a first in whatever expiring salary, right? Obviously, Austin would not go out in that deal. So, and obviously, you're not trading LeBron or Luca. So, everything else I think would probably just getting to the salary point, giving a first and a swap or something like that. I'd be interested in that. Now, again, you'd have to deal with the implications of how that makes DeAndre Ayton feel, right? Ayton is probably thinking, all right, then I'm not the center of the future here. And just the person DeAndre Ayton is, I'm guessing that affects his play in some way. I probably do that. But that's a tough thing because now you're not telling the world this in plain terms, but you are kind of hinting at we are punting
Mhm.
this year, right? You've given your
Yeah,
first round pick for a player that's not going to play this season,
yeah,
which essentially is telling the world we don't care about this
yeah.
year, which I don't think, just from organizational standpoint, I don't think that's a message that they
Mhm.
want out there. Maybe after you trade for Kessler, they have these Jason Tatum type reports come out and go, "Hey, like maybe Kessler is feeling a little better," and type of stuff. But yeah, I can't see them doing that from that PR perspective. But I'd probably do that if you believe Kessler is the guy, and you're gonna sit out the Giannis talks. We didn't even talk about Giannis, but if you're gonna sit out the Giannis talks, I could see them doing that.
I think from the standpoint that the Lakers probably weren't going to trade the first anyways, I think fans would be smart enough to be like, "Oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. You're getting the center for the future. Yes, you're technically punting, but I feel like this season they were going to try and do some smoke and mirrors stuff with it anyways, even if it wasn't, punting, because I don't see any scenario where they would trade that first, or there would be like, unless we're getting Aaron Nesmith or Herb Jones, right? I mean, they've already said who they trade the first for, like Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, guys who would be here for the future. And so the next best case I feel like would be, maybe we just bite the bullet a little bit this season, but at least we have it set up for this summer and we have a little bit more of a clearer path moving forward and don't have to jigsaw so many pieces and do the stopgap thing again, where it's like, who's the next DeAndre Ayton that's only going to fill in a spot for a year next summer? Maybe it's DeAndre Ayton again, sort of thing. And then I feel like if we do this type of deal, that's where I would maybe, considering DeAndre Ayton's feelings, that's when I would maybe do the, hey, can we get 3 seconds for DeAndre and get Daron Sharp instead?
Yeah.
So that we don't have to butt heads up against that theory. So it's interesting questions to throw out there. So.
I see it again. I'm not trying to make people upset. That's not what I try to do. But I am interested to see how the messaging goes, because I think there is a world. I'm not saying I'm rooting for this. I think there's a world where LeBron, obviously, I think LeBron and the Lakers walk away from each other in some way, right? This summer, or not in any bad feelings way. It's just, our time together has commenced. And the Lakers go, we re-sign Austin Reeves, and they do this whole thing again where they sign these players on 1-year deals, right? And say, hey, at the trade deadline in 2027, we're armed with 3 first-round picks plus all this tradable salary that is now real players and not cap space, right? Because this summer you have a bunch of space. So depending on what they do in these next 7 days, they either have space this summer or they don't, right? Like in terms of if they sign players that are extended past this season. If they don't, then they have to sign players this summer to then have those players to be attached to, etc. So I'd be interested to see how they move towards that. But
honestly, I don't think fans should get too mad at that scenario, because it'll be telling what they sign people to, what contract, the type of contracts they sign people to. Because if it is those 1-year deals, then you kind of know. And if that player like waives their no trade clause, or I forget who gets NTCs these days, but I think you can still sign 1-year bloated deals and trade that player by January or whatever, right? So
yeah,
it's almost like the writing is on the wall for those types of players, especially if you have 3 firsts to trade or whatever. So I could very much see that KCP bloated deal happening, and then come deadline, it's like, now if we don't do anything 2027 deadline, then we should get our pitchforks out, because Luka's going to be 27, 28 by the end of next season. So we can't have that. But at least in terms of like 2-stepping, 3-stepping this plan, because the 2026 summer free agency is very barren, that's likely what we're going to have to do. Is like, hey, Bruce Brown, you want not Bruce Brown, but what they've done in the past, like teams have done in the past, where they're like, Bruce Brown, you want to come for 1 year, $22 million? Sure, why not? Right. But by the way, we might flip you at the deadline. Just, it's okay. I'm getting $22 million. It might be one of those deals, So, anyways, Raj, thank you so much for hopping on. This is the longest stream that I have done in the last 2 years. I used to do this a lot with Tommy and Alan when I didn't have life obligations and stuff. But
sure.
I appreciate you for hopping on for so long. It was fun. Please tell people where they can find you, plug anything you need to plug, and
find me on Twitter, X, at Raj Chipalu. Please, join Offside. That we're building something cool over there on the app. So a lot of creators have started to post stuff on there. You can join their app. It's pinned on my Twitter. Writing for Silver Screen and Roll. I had a piece go up the other day about Drew Timmy and DeAndre Ayton, 2 big lineups. Listen to Lakers Detail, Lakers Lounge. I'll be at the game next Thursday. I think we're back home against Philly is the next home game. I've lost all sense of time and scheduling. All I do is wake up and check if the Lakers play that day, and that kind of decides how I run. But no, this was fun. We told Jonathan offline. I've told him many times that this is a place that I've listened to for a very long time. So I always appreciate coming on, and would love to come on again.
Absolutely. It's been awesome to see your growth and progression, not only like in terms of what you're doing in the NBA world, but also personally. So glad to have you on, Raj. Thank you. And yeah, next week when you're at that game, we might not have players available because of the trade deadline or whatever
That is
happens.
true.
So everybody buckle up. Might be a wild ride. Thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like this video, comment down below, hit subscribe, all that good jazz. Consider becoming a member to the Lakers Legacy channel. And with that said, this has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.